What's going on, guys? TG or Thunder God here, and today I will be talking about Sage Mode Naruto, drip, lord, cape, flowing, eyes, eyeliner, all that stuff, and how strong he is exactly. And after you finish today's video, you will know how strong he is exactly. I will be going over his insane abilities, his feats, and kind of where he stacks up in the universe. So with that being said, let's get started. So starting off, I think the best way to actually gauge Sage Mode Naruto is off of Sage Mode Jiraiya and Pain. I actually do talk about my thoughts on Sage Mode Jiraiya versus Pain a little bit in my Pain video, so check that out if you want to know a little bit more about it. Now, whether or not you think Sage Mode Jiraiya is stronger than Sage Mode Naruto isn't too relevant, but here's what I want to make clear. Sage Mode Naruto has a far superior Sage form in terms of hacks and abilities by far compared to Jiraiya, so let me explain that. Sage Mode Jiraiya, being an incomplete Sage, seems to only have boosted his base physical abilities in Jutsu amped by Sage Mode, compared to Naruto, who gains far more from being a mastered Sage. And we actually do know Naruto did surpass Jiraiya in Senjutsu, as noted by Fukasaku himself, who notes that Naruto has surpassed his predecessors in the form of Minato and Jiraiya in terms of Senjutsu. So starting off, Sage Mode Naruto has shown far more threat perception than Sage Mode Jiraiya, actually being able to make up for gaps in speed as evidenced by the third Raikage fight with his threat perception alone. Sage Mode Naruto also has far superior sensory feats, actually being able to sense everyone in the village and their life forces as soon as he arrived, noting Kakashi being dead. And this is also consistent with him actually sensing everybody in a war as well. Compare this to Jiraiya, who, albeit is off guard, actually couldn't sense a path of pain sneaking up right behind him. And the differences don't just stop there. When we get into their arsenal, we know Naruto actually has full mastery of Frog Kata, a form of taijutsu only accessed by those who have mastered Sage Mode. With Frog Kata, Naruto actually has his perception expanded and can actually reflect taijutsu back at the user, almost countering their attack with the same force. This can be seen most prominently with the third Raikage, with Naruto reflecting the Raikage's arm right back at him and one-shotting him with this enhanced perception. We also know Naruto has access to the subclasses of Frog Kata, for example his Frog Strike actually being almost identical to the Hyuga in their Gentle Fist, attacking the opponent from the inside out, transmitting the chakra like a wave. This is absolutely insane because it essentially allows Naruto in Sage Mode to actually bypass durability in the same way the Hyuga do. The Frog Strike was used and worked on the Foretells itself, so it can actually be argued to be superior to the Gentle Fist, actually working on a Bijou itself. And an interesting point as well is that in Sage Mode, Naruto actually gets the ability to do the one-handed rosengan, which is a big crutch that he had a problem with for a while, actually requiring shadow clones. And not a lot of people actually remember this, but he actually gains the ability to use the one-handed rosengan against Jubito. So that is just another point you can add on to his insane arsenal. Now, moving on from there, we actually know Naruto has access to his Rosenshuriken, although it's actually been shown to be throwable. The same Rosenshuriken that one-shotted Kakuzu and attacks on a cellular level. Yeah, that one. From there, we can actually move on to Sage Mode, Naruto's most impressive attribute, in my opinion, his physical strength. Now, what I find interesting is that the paths of pain are actually shown to be quite durable, whether you look at the Ashura path tanking lightning attacks from Kakashi, or the animal path actually taking physical blows from Jiraiya. What's interesting, however, is that Naruto in Sage Mode has actually showcased the ability to one-shot the paths of pain with brute force alone, which is actually a feat Jiraiya had not showcased. Now, to be fair to Jiraiya, while Sage Mode Naruto one-shotting these paths is impressive, Naruto did fight more fatigued paths of pain, while Jiraiya was fighting more primed, closer to Nagato paths of pain with more chakra. So just a small note, just to be fair to Jiraiya, because I don't want to leave him out completely. It just should be noted that Jiraiya actually was unable to take the pains out of the fight with physical strength alone. A decent comparison to the physical strength or durability of Naruto and Jiraiya, I think, can actually be looked at Pain's rods. Naruto is actually shown dismantling the rods casually, with them being unable to pierce him unless he actually let it in order to track Nagato, compared to Jiraiya, who actually shown to be blocking the rod, being pierced by it twice. Naruto also seems to be far more durable, as he's shown constantly matching the force of multi-ton rhinos, flipping them while never taking damage in Sage Mode. Sage Mode Naruto is just an absolute animal in terms of physical strength and durability, in which I would honestly make the assertion that he would be above Jiraiya in these categories. But where does he scale to exactly though? Well, there is always the debate about the placements of Sage Mode Naruto, Sage Mode Jiraiya, and Pain, so I won't talk too much about that, but I think we can get a gauge of Naruto compared to the Ninetales itself. Now, we actually do get an idea of where Naruto stacks up against his Ninetales form. For example, we actually do see him in the filler series Power, straight up boxing with the Four Tails version of the Ninetales chakra, in which Naruto absolutely dominates him with his frog kata. Whereas we also see when he goes into the Six Tails form, he's actually able to pressure the Diva Path of Pain significantly, actually damaging him. So you could make the distinct argument that the Sage Mode Naruto would actually be between the 4 and 6 tails of Ninetales Power, based on how he semi-interacts with them. Now, this might not sound that impressive, but the 6 tails Ninetales chakra, if you would, is actually quite impressive when you look at it. Was able to just completely blow away the Diva Path, who was taking on platoons of Shinobi. Again, check out my Pain video if you kind of want an idea of how strong Pain is. But when you stack it onto the fact that this Naruto has enhanced threat perception, the ability to actually counter and reflect attacks in terms of taijutsu back at the user, durability negging frog strikes, cellular level Rosenshuriken, that one-shot Kakuzu, stacked on with the fact that in terms of physical strength, he's an absolute monster, it just gets kind of crazy when you think about it. And this isn't even the end of his scaling, as we actually do have some beats off the Ninetales. Now, this is somewhat contentious because there's already debate on where you put the Ninetales, whether it be planetary, continental, multi-continental, whatever your stance on that is. Some people say the Ninetales is universal, whatever. But we actually do have some interaction with Naruto in the full Ninetales, with Naruto actually being able to quote-unquote damage, and the reason I use damage lightly is because Naruto's just kind of shown not to be at the full power of the Ninetales, but also shown to be affecting the Ninetales. I don't think it would be indicative to say Sage Mode Naruto directly scales to the full Ninetales just because he's able to actually affect him. It's almost similar to a car analogy in the fact that you can shake a car, or if you're in a box, you can shake the box, but that doesn't necessarily mean you could destroy the box. So I would kind of look at it like this, just because he has other scaling that puts him a little bit lower. But if you really want to look at his Ninetales feats of him chucking the Ninetales and shown to be actually affecting him, you can go off the cuff, talk about him being planetary AP, multi-continental AP, because he's damaging the Ninetales. But the Ninetales fight is also inside his psyche, so we don't even know if the Ninetales is full power. So if you approach the Ninetales fight, just take it with a grain of salt and be ready to argue contextually, because it's going to be a big problem. So Sage Mode Naruto has a far superior version of Sage Mode compared to Jiraiya, shown to be actually dealing with all 6 paths of pain at the same time, albeit with intel, is extremely impressive. And so Sage Mode Naruto is just shown to be an absolute animal in terms of his arsenal, his physical durability and strength, actually being able to chuck multi-ton rhinos and the Ninetales itself. And actually shown to be slapping around, the Four Tails, the same one who was kind of fondling and dealing with Orochimaru and almost killed Jiraiya. And I do know Jiraiya wasn't trying to kill Naruto, so I'm not taking that feat out of context. And scales somewhat between the 4 tails and 6 tails. Definitely can make an argument for him being greater, but then we're going to keep it very safe and a very general gauge of where he's at. With that being said, hope you guys learned something. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hit that like button if you did. And see you next time, guys.